Hey everyone, let me ask you something. Have you noticed that no matter where you live, the US, Europe, Asia, Africa, prices just keep going up? Groceries, rent, electricity, you name it. It feels like inflation isn't just a local problem anymore. It's like the whole world is paying more for everything all at once. So, what's really going on? Why is inflation hitting almost every country at the same time, even in places that used to have stable prices? Well, in this video, we're going to break it all down, simply, clearly, and with real numbers from October 2025. Stick around till the end, and you'll not only understand the why, but also what it means for you, your wallet, and your future.
Inflation, in simple words, is when prices go up and the value of money goes down. Let's say you bought groceries last year for $100. If today those same groceries cost $105, that means prices have increased by 5%. That's inflation. Now, a little inflation is normal. Most central banks, like the Federal Reserve in the US, aim for around 2% a year. But lately, many countries are seeing double or even triple that rate. According to the OECD, average inflation among advanced economies was around 4% in May 2025, still higher than normal even after all the interest rate hikes. In other words, prices are still rising, just not as fast as before. But the problem is, it's not just one region, it's global. Let's have a look into global picture. According to the International Monetary Fund's October 2025 World Economic Outlook, global inflation has cooled from its 2022 peak of nearly 9%, but it's still stubbornly high in many places. For the world's largest economies, the G20, inflation averaged around 3.7% in August 2025. But when we look closer, it's uneven. In the United States, inflation is hovering near 2.9%, slightly above the Fed's target. The euro area saw about 2.2% in September 2025. Japan, which struggled with deflation for decades, is finally above 2%. Meanwhile, Turkey still faces the world's highest, around 31% inflation in 2025. And oh my goodness, Argentina remains in triple-digit territory with prices rising more than 100% year over year. So yeah, inflation is global. But the reasons behind it, that's where things get interesting.
All right, the next question is, why inflation is hitting many countries at once? So the first one, global supply chain shocks. You remember how during COVID, everything slowed down, factories closed, ships were stuck, and deliveries took forever? Well, even in 2025, some of those effects are still echoing through the system. Shipping costs went up, raw materials became harder to get, and when supply goes down while demand stays high, prices rise. Even now, supply chain stress in sectors like semiconductors and energy continues to push up production costs worldwide. Energy and food prices. Energy prices are one of the biggest inflation drivers. Oil prices climbed back toward $90 a barrel in October 2025 thanks to production cuts by OPEC and rising demand from Asia. When oil gets expensive, everything else does too: transport, electricity, even groceries. Food prices remain elevated because of weather shocks. Droughts in Africa and floods in South Asia disrupted harvests, pushing up the global cost of wheat, rice, and corn. Strong global demand after reopening. When lockdowns ended, people around the world started spending again, traveling, shopping, eating out. Demand came roaring back, but supply couldn't keep up. You know how when everyone wants the same thing at once, sellers raise prices. That's exactly what happened on a global scale. In 2024 and 2025, even though demand has normalized a bit, that early surge set a new higher price level for many essentials. Labor shortages and wage pressures. Another big reason, the global labor shortage. In the US, unemployment is near 3.9%, and many employers are still struggling to fill positions, especially in services like healthcare and logistics. To attract workers, they're offering higher wages, and that cost gets passed on to consumers through higher prices. Similar stories are playing out across Europe, Australia, and parts of Asia. The globalization of inflation. Here's the key point most people miss. Inflation has become globalized. In the past, inflation was mostly a local issue, your country's policies, your local economy. But now, prices are connected across borders. If shipping from China gets expensive, American and European prices rise too. If war disrupts grain exports in Ukraine, food prices climb worldwide. A recent 2024 study found that international factors explain more than half of inflation changes across major economies. In other words, even if your government is doing everything right, global shocks can still drive your inflation higher. Monetary policy and government spending. Remember the massive stimulus packages during COVID? Governments everywhere printed and spent trillions to keep people afloat. That money helped the economy recover, but it also meant more money chasing fewer goods. Central banks then started raising interest rates in 2023 and 2024 to fight inflation. In the US, the Fed's key rate sits around 5.25% in October 2025, the highest level in over 20 years. That's cooled inflation, but hasn't wiped it out because global price pressures are still there. Local currency and import costs. For many emerging markets, it's even tougher. When the US dollar gets stronger, like it did this year, their local currencies weaken. And since they import oil, food, and technology in dollars, everything costs more. So even if they don't have domestic overspending, the exchange rate alone can cause inflation.
Why it feels like every country at once. If you look at the map, it really does feel synchronized, like a global wave of higher prices. But the truth is, it's the same global forces, energy, shipping, supply, wages, playing out differently in each country. Advanced economies, like the US and Europe, are hovering around 2 to 3% inflation. Emerging markets like Brazil, India, South Africa see 5 to 10%. And crisis economies like Turkey or Argentina are in double or triple digits. So when we say inflation is everywhere, we mean it's universal, but not identical. Every household feels it differently, but no one escapes it completely.
What it means for you. Okay, let's bring it down to a personal level. How does all this global inflation actually affect you? First, cost of living. Groceries, utilities, housing, everything eats a bigger slice of your paycheck. Second, borrowing costs. Central banks are keeping interest rates high to control inflation. That means your credit card debt, car loan, or mortgage probably costs more in 2025 than it did 2 years ago. Third, savings lose value. If your savings account pays 2%, but inflation is 4%, you're actually losing 2% of purchasing power each year. Fourth, investments get tricky. Stocks may rise in nominal terms, but real returns after inflation can shrink. Bonds, which pay fixed interest, become less attractive when inflation stays above those yields. What governments and you can do? For governments, the IMF recommends that central banks stay focused on bringing inflation down by keeping interest rates restrictive until they see clear progress. At the same time, governments need to reduce deficits and rebuild fiscal buffers so they can respond to future crises without adding new inflationary pressure. Long-term investments in technology, renewable energy, and logistics can help ease global supply bottlenecks. For individuals, that's you. There are a few practical things you can do. Track inflation in your country. Don't just listen to headlines, check what's happening to your personal expenses. Protect your savings. Look for inflation-protected bonds, index funds, or assets that tend to rise with inflation, like real estate or commodities. Diversify income. Maybe start a side hustle, invest in skills, or find multiple streams of earnings. Inflation hurts less when your income grows too. Budget smartly. Reevaluate your expenses. Small savings can add up when prices keep rising. Think globally. If you buy imported goods or travel, keep an eye on currency changes. They can hit your pocket faster than you think. All right, let's conclude the whole discussion. So here's the big takeaway. Inflation isn't just a number, it's a global chain reaction. From oil wells in Saudi Arabia to factories in China to supermarkets in America, everything's connected. That's why inflation is hitting nearly every country at once. The good news? It's slowly easing compared to the chaos of 2022. The bad news? It may stay higher than we were used to before COVID. But if you understand the causes and take smart personal steps, you can stay one step ahead. Thanks for watching Finance Made Simple with Imran. If you found this helpful, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe for weekly finance breakdowns, and tell me in the comments what's the inflation rate in your country right now. I'll feature some of your answers in the next video. Stay informed, stay smart, and as always, make your money work smarter for you.